Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
This book is about a very important event that happened in America. It is about trade. There was a surprising decision from a court. This court decision stopped some new taxes on goods. These were taxes on goods coming from other countries into the United States. President Donald Trump had ordered these new trade taxes to start. These taxes are also called tariffs. The decision by the court was very important for the whole country. It caused big changes in politics and how the government works. It also caused big changes for many businesses and how they trade with countries around the world. The court's decision really shook up both the political world and the business world. A very big and important question came from this decision. The question was simple but hard to answer. Did the president have the legal power to do this? Did he have the power under the law to put these many new trade taxes into effect across the country? This question was the main reason for the court case. This situation led to a major legal battle. It was a big fight that used the law in the courts. This battle was about who really has the power to control America's trade with other nations. Is it the president who has this power, or does the U.S. law give this control mainly to another part of the government like Congress? This book will tell you more about this important legal battle and what it means for trade rules and power in America's government. 2. The court's big decision. A special federal court in New York made a very important decision. This court is called the U.S. Court of International Trade. 3 judges worked on this case, and all 3 judges agreed on the decision. On May 28, 2025, the court said many new trade taxes ordered by President Donald Trump were wrong. The judges clearly stated that a big part of these tariffs were illegal and unconstitutional. They explained that the president used a law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. But the court said President Trump went too far with the power this law gives. The judges said IEEPA does not give the president a power that is without limits to set taxes on goods from other countries. They said the U.S. Constitution gives the main power to make tariffs to Congress, not the president. Because of this decision, several specific tariffs are now stopped. One big one is the Liberation Day Plan. This was a 10% tax meant for almost all goods brought into the country from nearly every foreign nation. That tax is now stopped. The court also stopped tariffs on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada. These specific tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada were also based on the IEEPA law. They were linked to a national emergency that President Trump declared about problems at the southern border. But the court said these tariffs were not allowed under IEEPA either. So, all these specific tariffs that were based on IEEPA are now nullified. This means they are no longer legal. It is important to know that this ruling does not stop all of President Trump's tariffs. Older tariffs, such as the taxes on steel and aluminum imports, were put in place under different laws. These older tariffs are not affected by this court decision. The court's order tells the government that it must stop collecting these illegal tariffs quickly, within 10 days. However, the government has said it disagrees with the court's decision. The government plans to appeal. This means they will ask a higher court, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, to review the decision. This legal fight could possibly go all the way to the Supreme Court, the highest court in the United States. 3. Why new taxes on goods? President Trump had a big plan for trade. In his second term, he wanted to use new taxes on goods coming into the United States. These taxes are often called tariffs. To do this, he said there were important problems, like national emergencies. One problem he talked about was issues at the border with other countries. Another big problem he saw was that the U.S. bought much more from other countries than it sold to them. This is called a large trade deficit. Based on these emergencies, in early 2025, he ordered new taxes on many goods from Canada, Mexico, and China. He said this was needed because of the border situation and drug problems. Then came an even bigger plan in April 2025. President Trump called this Liberation Day. Under this plan, there was a 10% tax on almost all goods brought into the United States from any country. For some countries, the taxes would be even higher. President Trump said these taxes were needed for important reasons. He believed they would help fix trade that he saw as unfair to the U.S. He also said they were needed to protect the U.S. economy and make it stronger. However, many businesses in the U.S. did not agree. They worried that these taxes would make things more expensive for people and hurt their trade with other countries. Several states also thought the taxes were a bad idea and not allowed by law. Because of these disagreements, many businesses and states decided to take legal action. They went to court to challenge President Trump's new taxes on goods. They asked the court to stop the taxes. 4. The president and the law. The big question in the court was about a law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. People often call it IEEPA. Could President Donald Trump use this law to create the new taxes on goods from other countries? This law is usually used for different kinds of emergencies, like controlling money or stopping trade with certain people or groups in other countries. The court looked at IEEPA. It also looked at the United States Constitution. The Constitution is the main rule book for the country. It says who has the power to make laws about taxes on goods from other places. The Constitution says this power belongs mainly to Congress, not the President alone. The judges at the U.S. Court of International Trade said that IEEPA does not give the President unlimited power to set wide-ranging tariffs that affect the whole economy. They said IEEPA was not written for this purpose. The court ruled that the president's order for a 10% tax on almost all imports was not allowed by IEEPA. The orders for higher taxes on goods from specific countries like China were also not allowed by this law. There were also taxes linked to problems at the border, like drug trafficking. The president said these taxes were needed because of an emergency at the border. But the court looked at IEEPA again. The law says that the president's actions in an emergency must directly help solve the problem. The judges said these tariffs did not directly fix the border or drug problem. Instead, they were used to try and pressure other governments to do something. Because they did not directly deal with the specific emergency, The court said these tariffs were also illegal under IEEPA. The government argued that IEEPA gave the president broad powers during an emergency, but the court did not agree. The judges said it was important to remember that Congress is the part of the government that has the main power to make laws about trade and tariffs. The court's decision was a strong statement about the limits of the president's power under this law. 5. Money, shops, and other countries. The court's decision had quick effects on the world of money and trade. Right after the news, the stock markets showed signs of being happier. Prices for shares in companies went up. A main group of technology company shares rose by more than 2%. People who watch the markets felt less worried about a growing trade fight between countries. The value of the US dollar became stronger. At the same time, the value of money from countries often seen as safe places to put money, like the Japanese yen, became weaker. This showed that investors felt less risk of a big economic problem caused by trade taxes. Goods that come into the United States from other countries could become cheaper now. This is good news for many people. Consumers, meaning the people who buy things in shops, might see lower prices. Also, U.S. businesses that buy parts or finished products from outside the U.S. might pay less for these goods. This can lower costs for manufacturers who make things using imported materials. Lower costs for businesses and shops can help reduce price increases. When taxes on goods from other countries are high, the cost is often passed on to the final buyer. This makes things more expensive. By stopping these high taxes, the court's decision could help slow down how fast prices go up for many items. This helps fight inflation in some areas of the economy. However, not everyone was happy. Some companies in the United States were disappointed. These are companies that produce goods inside the U.S. They face competition from goods made in other countries. High taxes on imported goods make those foreign products more expensive, which helps U.S. companies sell their own products. Without these high taxes, it can be harder for U.S. companies to compete on price with imported goods. Countries that trade a lot with the United States also reacted. Countries like Canada and Mexico welcomed the court's decision. Their leaders were happy because taxes on their goods were stopped. This could lead to smoother trade across the borders. China, another big trading partner, also generally welcomed the news. China had put taxes on goods from the U.S. because of the U.S. tariffs. They said they might look at their own taxes on U.S. goods again now. Experts said the court's ruling could change how the U.S. government talks with other countries about trade deals. It might remove problems that the tariffs had created in trade talks. The decision also brought up questions about the U.S. government's money plan, called the budget. It also made people think about the trade deficit again. The trade deficit is the difference between the total value of goods and services the U.S. buys from other countries and the total value it sells to them. This court ruling had many effects on money, businesses, and trade with other countries around the world. 6. What people think. The court made a big decision about the trade taxes. After the ruling, people across the country had different ideas about it. Many people were pleased with the ruling. People in the Democratic Party liked it. They said it was important because it limited the power of the president. They felt it was a good thing for families and businesses. Some people who study the law closely also said it was a good and important decision. They said it showed that the president must follow the laws made by Congress. State lawyers like the Attorney General of Oregon and the Attorney General of Arizona were part of the group that brought the case to court. They said the ruling was a win for working people and small businesses. On the other hand, many people did not like the court's decision. People who strongly supported President Trump felt that the judges were wrong to stop his plan. Some members of the Republican Party in Congress agreed. They said the judges had too much power. They argued that the president needs strong abilities to act quickly, especially when he sees big problems that affect the country. The White House, speaking for the president, said that judges who are not elected should not stop the president's actions during an emergency. Speaker Mike Johnson, a leader in Congress, also said it was wrong for one court to stop the president's plans for the whole country. Groups that represent businesses had different reactions. Most businesses were happy because they thought the ruling would help them by making imported goods cheaper. Groups like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the National Association of Manufacturers were relieved. But they also said that the government needs to create clear and stable rules for trade, so businesses know what to expect. Workers' groups had mixed feelings about the decision. Some workers' unions, especially in industries like steel and car making, had supported the high taxes on foreign goods because they thought it helped protect jobs in the U.S. They were not happy that these protections might go away. However, other unions, like those for workers in shops, were worried that the high taxes would make things more expensive for everyone. Newspapers and people who are experts in trade and law wrote many articles about the decision. They talked about how important it was for the rule of law, which means everyone, even the president, must follow the law. They also discussed what the ruling meant for how the U.S. will make trade rules in the future. Many experts pointed out that the country's law, the Constitution, says that Congress is the main group that should set taxes on goods that come into the country. The court's decision reminded people of this rule and that the president's power has limits. 7. Trade in the past. To understand trade rules today, we can look at history. In the United States, the power to put taxes on goods from other countries, called tariffs, mostly belongs to Congress. This is written in the country's main law, the Constitution. For many, many years, presidents used their power over trade in careful ways. They often worked with Congress to make rules about goods coming into the country. Sometimes presidents used specific laws for limited trade actions. For example, they might add a tax on just one type of product, like steel, if it caused a problem for companies in the U.S. But things started to change more recently. During President Donald Trump's first time in office, he used certain laws to put new taxes on some goods. One law called Section 232 was used for taxes on steel and aluminum. Another law, Section 301, was used for taxes on many goods from China. These taxes were larger than before and changed how the U.S. traded with many countries. In his second time in office, President Trump wanted to do even more. He used a law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. This law is usually for different types of emergencies, but he used it to order very broad tariffs, like the 10% tax on almost all imports. He said there were emergencies about trade deficits and problems at the border. Using IEEPA for such big taxes on many different goods was a new idea. It was very different from how most presidents in the past handled trade. Usually, tariffs that affect the whole economy need Congress to make a law. The recent court decision we discussed highlighted this point. The court said that the Constitution gives the main power for tariffs to Congress. It showed that using an emergency law like IEEPA for such wide tariffs was not the right way to do it according to the law. Looking at history shows how the rules and actions for trade have changed over time. From Congress having the main role for a long time to presidents using specific laws, and then trying a much broader use of emergency powers, the story of trade in the U.S. is long and has many important moments. 8. What now? The court said the new taxes on goods from other countries must stop. So for now, those taxes are gone. But this does not mean the story is finished. The government did not agree with the court's decision. They said they will ask a higher court to look at the case again. This is called an appeal. The next court will be the United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. After that, the case could even go to the highest court in the United States, the Supreme Court. This legal fight might continue for a long time. This court ruling makes people think about important things. How much power can a president use when there is a national emergency? Who should make the rules for trading with other countries? The court said that Congress has the main power for this, not the president using emergency laws like the one in this case. This decision is a big event for how the United States handles trade. People will talk about it for many years. It shows that courts can check what the president does. The decision helps people understand the line between the president's actions and the courts reviewing those actions. The challenged tariffs are stopped, but the legal battle has just moved to the next level. It is not clear what the final result will be or how it will change trade in the future. What do you think will happen next in this important case?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.